Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about protecting other people's children. Isn't that a thinker? And luckily, I have Debbie here who's going to really help us think about this in a whole new way. So, thank you so much, Debbie, for coming on to my show, sharing your time and your perspective with me. Truly appreciate this. But let's just dive right in. When you hear
Thank you.
those words, protecting other people's children, what does that make you think about?
Well, for me, it's I joke that I have spent my life taking care of other people's children. I've been a foster parent. I've worked with youth organizations. I'm now a lawyer who advises youth organizations. And so my first book was about raising other people's children, which is being a foster parent, a step parent. And then when my co-author and I decided to work on a book about youth protection policies or child protection policies for youth organizations, which is where both of us have spent our professional lives. It just made sense to still talk about, now we're still dealing with other people's children, but now we're looking at the best way to protect them in youth serving organizations.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I don't think people realize um how to really protect their own children, and let alone other people's children. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's really
Yep.
scary when you hear all of these things that come on the news about harassment, sexual harassment, or just, invading children's privacy and exposing them into other areas into the world that they shouldn't even be into. And it's really scary because it's like, how exactly do you protect other people's children? And the fact that you are a foster parent and you've dealt with so many children in and out of your home, I mean, you probably have a good idea or set a standard of what would be considered to have a safe environment in your home. Is that right?
Yes, both in your home and in youth organizations, and of course we've got the balance of it. I believe it is possible to have such a thing as keeping kids too safe, because if we make them paranoid about the world, then we convince them that the world is an unsafe place and they cannot navigate it without us.
Yeah.
So you want to keep them safe, but empower them and not turn them into anxious, fear-ridden people who are always looking over their shoulder. And it's a tough, tough balance.
Oh my goodness, I love that you said that because oh my goodness, I think that's spoken so beautifully because we don't realize that there has to be some type of balance because the extremities are there. You know what I mean? There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
denying the extremities of too safe and just no acknowledgement in general. You know what I mean? Then it comes to borderline neglect at that point. You know what I mean? So it's just
Right.
like we have to find that balance because at the end of the day, these children will eventually become adults. And when they are adults, they need to be well-minded individuals who can think and act and move in a manner that brings themselves safety and also opportunities, but also an understanding of life that they can maneuver and not be so timid. You know what I mean? They can take risks,
Right.
they can take
Yes.
adventures, they can know for themselves if this is an opportunity or if this is a downfall, because there's always those that are in play. So it's just like we really have to find that balance. And I love that you said that because man, where do you even start when it comes to that then?
Well, there's a lot that we recommend with youth organizations that it's behind the curtain. It's stuff that kids never see, and they don't need to see it. So you start with, what are your rules for screening people? What are your rules for doing reference checks and getting recommendations from the people that you let into your organization?
Yeah.
So, you start with that, and then you go to boundaries. What are the healthy boundaries that you insist that not only that adults have with kids, but that kids have with each other? And
Mm.
there's a lot that you can do with kids in teaching them um, the importance of boundaries, both for self respect, but also respect and empathy for each other. And, to some extent, some of that is age related. You don't expect a 2-year old to have empathy. You don't expect a 3-year old to have self respect, but you can teach them boundaries. A lot of us are used to explaining to kids, no, no, use your words, don't hit your brother, or now you have to use your inside voice. Those are boundaries. And then as they grow older, we can teach them interpersonal boundaries of dealing with other people. So, um, those issues, and then again, there's a lot of rules that you can put on your staff that the kids don't need to know about. A lot of it's age related. Just to take for example, with teens, you can have a rule of not no physical contact, or everything has to be above the shoulders. You can do side hugs, and that's it. With little kids, you don't want to have a no touch rule, because that makes that, that they just instinctively want hugs when they fall. They want to hug their teacher when they come in the morning. They want to hug
Yeah.
their friends. And it would be developmentally harmful to them for teachers to say, oh, no, no, I can't hug you. I can't touch you because of a rule. So, you have to have boundaries based on what works for the kids that are in your care.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most definitely the screening portion is very important, especially for the adults, because you want adults to be well-rounded individuals as well,
Mhm.
because they need to have that discrepancy, that discernment to understand the difference between a toddler and a teenager. You're not gonna hug a teenager for too long, 1, 2 seconds.
Right.
Okay, boom, 1, 2, 3, we're done. Versus a toddler that just scraped his knee. He just wants just a hug a little longer. You
Right.
know what I mean? So you need to know those discrepancies so that it doesn't get inappropriate, because that inappropriate line is very subjective, but it's also
Mhm.
very real. You know what I mean? We need to well, like you said, if we have that respect, have that understanding, and allowing the children to not be free, but also be themselves. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? There has to be that line, that guided line. And for parents out there, I mean, it's always that fear factor. Like, how do I know? How can I trust? How? You know what I mean? All of these
Right.
things, because I'm a
Right.
parent and my babies are toddlers, and oh my goodness, when you came to me with this idea, I was just like, "Yes, because we need to really think about this as parents. How would you let them know the ways to like know if a facility or a place is actually decent or well organized to
Well,
protect
you look for those rules. You look for what boundary rules does your staff have. Then you would also look, for example, what sort of rules do you as a parent want to have, and what rules does the organization have about off-campus contact? So, for example, if you have your child in a child care center, it's natural to want to hire the teacher that your child already loves as a babysitter. But what rules does your organization have professional rules for that? So for example, we always advise our clients that if they allow that, they have very clear rules and very clear instructions to the parents that we cannot supervise our folks at your house. You are on your own for supervision, and you have to supervise your own kids and keep an eye on what's going on. So
Yeah.
then there is with older kids, you want to know, if the camp counselors are contacting them over social media after camp is over, you want to know about that. You want to know what rules the camp has. We always recommend just tell them no, because most adults don't really want kids following them on TikTok. They don't want to spend that much time with kids. And
Yeah, yeah.
or if there is contact, like alumni groups or a Facebook group for the camp. that everything, all the conversation be public, that there not be any side conversation. So you as a parent would need to keep up with that. Um, One of the topics that we talk about that parents and youth organizations need to do is just, for example, there's a big issue these days about grooming kids for abuse, and grooming is a serious issue. But if you
Mhm.
go too far, if you start looking at the categories of or the characteristics of groomers, and then you look at the characteristics of a good mentor, the Venn diagram overlaps because
Yeah,
the good mentor has a positive relationship with kids. The parents
yeah,
like them and trust them and those kind of things. So we recommend that you look for, and the book and our online courses have a lot more explanation of this, but there are three specific things that happen with groomers that don't happen with mentors, and one of them is um, isolating the kid. Well, favoritism, first of all, unusual favoritism, not just, oh, this kid and I have the same personality, we get along better, but unusually picking them out of the crowd. And then the second one is isolation, not just physical isolation, but emotional isolation. No one
yeah,
understands you quite like I do. Your parents don't get you. Um, don't tell anyone. Secrets are a big, big red flag, that sort of emotional isolation. And then the third one is gradually pushing boundaries. Yeah, I know this is a rule, but we don't need to follow this rule right here and now. Um,
yeah,
so those three things are, good mentors don't do those three things. And you
yeah.
can, um, so you can watch for those things. Again, the kids aren't going to recognize it. They're not going to understand it. And they don't need to. This is something that the adults around them need to keep an eye out for.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up about grooming and good mentors and knowing the two, because we want our children to be with people who can mentor them and provide them insight, provide them knowledge that maybe they won't listen to the parents or somebody else that's at home that's taking care of them, those guardians, because there's always some type of resistance. So having a good mentor, knowing that they're there to serve them well, guide them in the right avenue is well mind is nice to have, but we also have to keep a note on those signs that you said, and I'm glad you said that, to know the emotional interaction, know that isolation, know those warning signs of pushing boundaries. Well, she said that it's okay that she gives me a hug this way. So, you know what I mean? Like, we need
Right.
to be aware, and I think parents, they really need to find their values, their morals, and just really know that the people that they're surrounded by also meet those morals and values as well. And the organization has morals and values that they stand by, and they provide resources to make sure that everyone's on the same page. I think that's so important. Is that transparency? You know what I mean? Is having
Oh,
that
definitely.
transparency is so much needed. And as a foster parent, what is one thing that you've seen that is very important to establish with a child?
I think with foster kids and step kids to some degree, you're dealing with kids who've suffered some level of trauma.
Yeah,
We tend to with step kids, we tend to think, well, kids are resilient after divorce, but and they are, but it's still a trauma, and it still
yeah,
leaves an issue. So even if the biological parents have a good relationship, those kids have lost their intact biological family.
yeah,
So whether they've lost their family through divorce or death, or whether they have ended up in foster care, by definition, they've lost their intact biological family.
yeah,
Um, I think the most important thing we can do for kids is, I call it unconditional commitment, but unconditional love, but conditional commitment. And that is, we make a strong commitment. It's a one-way commitment. We're the adults. We don't expect the kids to reciprocate. They may not like us. They may not want us there. But I call it being like gravity. You know, gravity doesn't really care what your opinion is. It's just there. So
Yeah.
it's gravity with a lot of nurturing, but at the same
Mhm.
time, you have boundaries so that you learn how to say to your kids, look, I can't go with you here. Um, and I love you, I care about you, but you're on your own with this one. You know where to find us when you come back. And that's mostly with adult kids who
Yeah.
reject you. But even with younger kids who reject you, you just say, okay, you have the space to make the decisions you want to make. In the meantime, here are the house rules. And whenever you um, feel like you want to work on a relationship, I'm here. Until then, that's okay. I still care about you. I'm still here. And as one experienced foster parent said to me, you have to learn how to say to your kids, I'm so sorry you went through what you did. And now it's time to do the dishes. So,
Yes, I think your analogy on gravity is the best way because so many times a lot of the times children just will retaliate, rebel, or just act out of character just because they want to know if you love them, if you can provide them that
right,
attention, if you can provide them that understanding that I see you, that I love you, and I care for you. So it's just like to have that standard foundation, like I love you. I may not like you all the time or your actions, but I will
right,
always love you. I will always love you. And I think that's the thing, is that a lot of people don't have that understanding, or they don't speak those words to their children, and that's what causes them to rebel. You know what I mean? Like a child may not know, and a teen may not know that you still love them because you put so much emphasis on not touching the car, or not going out, or not going out at night. So it's like, oh my goodness, if I do that, they won't love me anymore. If I get a B instead of an A on my test, they won't love me anymore. But in reality, it's like, no, I will still love you, and we will still be okay. You know what I mean? It's just laying that foundation down and just knowing, like,
mm-hmm,
I don't care. Like, you can be 80 years old and I will still love you. You know what I mean? You can be 50 with
right,
7 kids and I will still love you as my child, you know? So it's just like, we need to have that foundation. We need to let these children know that they're seen, that they're heard, and they're valued. And the fact that you said, like, I'm sorry what you went through and that trauma, and it still affects you, but yeah, go do the dishes, go focus on
right,
that, that'll help
right.
calm you down, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Well, and not only that, but the decisions have consequences, and being able to say to kids, yeah, that decision didn't work out well for you, did it? But I will walk beside you while we work through these consequences. I'm not bailing you out. I'm not protecting you from them. You still have a bad grade, but let's figure out how to recover your grade, how to get another job, um, how to pick yourself up after failure and move on. And we will work through this together. I think it doesn't help kids to say, oh, they can't help it, so we let them out of the consequences. That's not helpful.
Yeah.
I'm a big person to say kids need to suffer the natural consequences of their behavior. So,
Yes.
if they don't get their school project done, it's their grade, and we have to figure out together a way around it. But the grade is the grade. I don't
Exactly.
try to get the teacher to change the grade. I try to get the kid to figure out how to dig themselves out of the hole and help themselves dig themselves out
Exactly.
of the hole.
And that right there holds value because when you're an adult and you do something, you have to pick yourself out. You have to do it
Yes.
on your own, and you have to have that ability to keep going and brush off your feet or whatever dirt that's on you and learn from the lesson. So it's like, oh, I didn't finish my project because I ran out of time. Okay, well then let's work on your time management then, because that's the problem. And now we have a way to figure it out and solve it for the solution. And I think that's one thing that parents need to do, is just exactly like you said, let them fall if they fall, but also not run and oh my goodness, I need to hug you and hold you and pick you up and to carry you all the way through the way to the car. Like, no, they need to walk, they need to figure it out, and they need to learn that it's okay if they fall. You are going to fall thousands of times in your lifetime, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's okay, but it's about how you see it, how you perceive it, how you understand it, and how you're going to go forward with it. And we can't protect our children from everything because they need
No.
they need to experience everything that comes with life, you know? And I feel like a lot of the
Yeah,
times people are moving in this direction, like, oh, we need to protect them and protect them and protect them. It's like that, then you might as well put them in the bubble and hope for that the bubble doesn't
right.
pop, because it's very unrealistic. They're gonna experience somebody saying no to them. So to say, oh, we don't like to say no to our children, like, well, somebody will. Somebody will say no. You
Somebody
know what
will
I mean?
say no to them
Somebody will
sometime.
say it one way or another. And it's like in the family dynamic, it's like one thing I was taught is like, I'm gonna say it to you nicely. I'm gonna tell you no the nicest way, and I'm gonna redirect you the nicest way possible, because somebody out there in the world won't always be nice when they correct you. They won't always tell you to do it in the nicest way. So if I'm telling you to do it in the nicest way possible, then receive it, because out there in the real world, somebody might do it in very harshly and hurt your feelings in a manner that makes you question your whole entire livelihood. So it's like children need to recognize that sometimes punishment isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can be a protective thing. You know what I mean? There's so many ways to go around
Yes.
this.
Well, to give an example, one of the things that we're finally learning, it took a couple of decades, is that kids need to have their immune system stressed a little bit as they're growing up. If you keep them in too sterile an environment when they're young, then then they have a lot more allergies and issues because their immune system just doesn't just doesn't get the exercise it needs. We're
Yeah.
learning that there is a psychological immune system that works the same way.
Mhm.
Our kids need a level of psychological stress in order to learn how to deal with it. They need to have a little bit of failure in order to learn how to
Yeah.
deal with it. And just as with the immune system, we give kids vaccinations, which is a little piece of the virus, so that their system can respond and develop antibodies. We don't drop kids down in the knees award and say this, hope your immune system copes with it. So, in the psychological front, we don't want to overstress their immune system with trauma, but at the same time, we don't want to bubble wrap them because they don't develop a strong psychological immune system. And
Exactly.
so all of us who work with kids have to understand that we love them, we care about them, we nurture them, but we vaccinate them. Or we stress their immune system so that it will become stronger.
Exactly. Exactly. That's one thing that I most definitely love. It's just like, oh, why do I have to do the dishes? If you can just do the dishes. Well, you have to learn how to do the dishes so that when you're in your own apartment, living your own life singly with nobody there, you will have clean dishes and you will know how to do it properly. You know what I mean? It's just basic
Right.
life skills. So it's just like,
And,
yes,
and
I agree.
and sometimes they don't listen to that. I used to when my kids they would say, "Well, I don't need to learn it now," I would just go to, "Well, I'm sorry, the dishwashing fairy has gone on strike because she doesn't like the working conditions or the pay. So
I
somebody's got
love
to
it.
do it."
Right, exactly. She's on strike. She ain't coming back for any time soon. So you might as well step up and do something. That is so true. I love it. Thank you so much, Debbie, for this conversation. I am truly enjoying this. I'm sad that time is catching up to us. So what can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
So I just think love your kids and expect a lot from them.
Yes. Oh, so simple, but so true. It holds so much value. Like, just love your kids. Do the best that you can to love your kids and just treat them with, oh my goodness, exactly. Thank you so much, Debbie. And ladies and
Sure.
gentlemen, if you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, go check out Debbie. I have access to her link, which has access to her book, which has access to all of the great content that you can just continue on thinking, because isn't that the point? Yes, it is. So with that being said, bye.